Thank you so much, Mohit, for joining us. I'm really excited for today. Like I was saying before, I hit the record button. I have not talked to you. So this is as much of, I have gone through your entire podcast. I have looked at your social media. I know that, there's a lot to unfold in your journeys. Okay, so Mohit is actually a realtor now. But he has a very interesting backstory where he came in as a student. He started his own business while he was a student, which was College Pro. He used to, in very, bluntly put, they used to paint, like people's houses, some renovations, some work. As a student, you can do that, run a business, and then as his hard work would have it. I would never say luck would have it. As like he worked really hard, and he actually earned about 120 to $130,000 in gross revenue in year one. And then he went from there and almost doubled the business in year two. And now he is buying houses, flipping houses, buying multi-unit properties, helping other investors build their portfolios. I was very fascinated by Mohit's story, who has built a decent enough portfolio for himself, plus started a few businesses, and now on a journey of becoming a realtor. And I just felt that there is a lot to learn from for someone who has not come here long ago, right? I'm very excited about this one. So Mohit, before anything, just tell me and the audience a little bit about you. When you came to Canada, what's your backstory?
So I came to Canada in 2016 September. That was the starting of my semester in University of Windsor. For my course was automation engineering. So I did my undergrad from Delhi, and then I worked there for like 6-7 months, and then I came here for my master's. So with masters, how it was for the University of Windsor, so I only had 2 classes in a week, so only 6 hours of classes in a week, so I had a ton of time. And then I started working in Walmart right away. So I was working 20 hours there, but it's still, if you 20 plus 26, and then there's a ton of time left. So I was like trying to figure out, hey, how can I best utilize this time? So I just found this ad popped up one day on my, I think it was Facebook I was using. And then they're like, hey, if you want to run as a student, if you want to run a business during your summertime, just sign up. So I signed up for it. The guy called me. We went through like, I think 6 to 7 rounds of interview. This company was College Pro. So what College Pro used to do, they used to have 2 business models. One was window cleaning, one was painting, and a little bit renovations, mostly surrounding for the students only. So only university kids, mostly university kids. So pretty much they operate all over Canada and US. So then you just, they sign you up in their process. They teach you how to run the business, how to hire students. So anyone who were like our business coaches, everything, they were previous franchise owners. And then but there was no starting fee, so I only had like $100 something starting fee, but the royalties they used to charge from the revenue you would generate by running business, they used to be a little higher, so that you were looking at 20%, 25%. So that's how they used to take their charges back based on what they have put into you. And then for a student, like, it's since you are starting from zero, so there's no investment for you, and it's a win-win situation for me. So then what happened, so I started, so how the business model was, so you start so business used to actually happen in the summer months, which is the month of May, June, July, August, till August, but you have to prepare for it 4 months in advance. So what I would do is you have to do marketing. You have to go reach out to your potential customer who would allow you to do their work in summertime, be it window cleaning or painting or a little bit renovation here and there that we could do. And then so in this time, one, you have to book the work, you have to do marketing, door knocking, cold calling, any social media marketing you can afford to do it at that time. And then so our main target was door knocking, cold calling. We had a list of customers from previous years with College Pro, so we were just calling them, all of them. So I had few of my classmates join me. I'm like, hey guys, like, let's just go door knocking. I'll give, I'll feed you pizza party or whatever. I try to pay them hourly as well. And it was like cold winter, so none of us has ever seen the winter itself. So we'd just go door knocking, door by door, and we pretty much ended up, I think, in our first year itself. So once the marketing happened, we ended up doing almost a business of 125 to 30K in first year during that summer month.
Sorry, 130K?
130K, yeah.
As a student?
As a student, yeah. In the summertime, yeah, that time. So that was the revenue. That was the total revenue I'm giving you, the sales. That's how much we did the business for.
As a student, like, this is something that people don't find courage, even if they are coming on PR, and doing things, with their job, having a side hustle. What made you do that? Like, what a lot of students come here. A lot of students just do 20 hours a week. Sometimes a little bit more. But you did something that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people don't know. So what made you find this opportunity? Like, what is it?
So basically, I met this guy. He's a friend of mine. So basically, I used to work at Walmart, and this guy used to come there and buy some renovation stuff or some other grocery item. But he used to talk to me a lot. So I met him a few times. So I asked him, "Hey, what do you do?" So he told me he does flipping. They would buy rundown houses, fix them, sell them. And then I'm like, at that time, I didn't started it. It was just like I was 1 month into Canada at that time. So I'm like, what is that? So he explained me one day, he sat me down with me for half an hour, explained me the entire process. I asked for how much money he makes, how many houses he can flip in a year, and what sort of just to initial intro into the real estate, like the Burr method, how he used to do it in Windsor. So he explained me that. And this guy was at that time making close to 300, 350 per year. And then I'm like, okay, that's good. This is good stuff. And then I went to my professor in my class. I jokingly asked him like how much money he makes.
Okay.
So my professor used to work in Ford in Detroit. So he was an industry professional at the same time teaching in University of Windsor as well. So he was like pretty much peak of his performance. So working professionally, automotive company, and then being in university studying that. So he told me like, hey, like whatever I make, government takes 40% of it, give or take. And he was ranking up. He said like I make somewhere around 160, 170 at that time. Yeah. Or like in some good days, if he gets a bonus, he might go up a little bit more, but that's his average. I'm like, dude. And then he's like, yeah, but I'm working all the time. I mean, work 6 days a week, there's just no time off. And then I'm like, wow. So now I had a comparison, like, hey, what should you do as in order to maximize your time, enjoy the life of an entrepreneur. And at the same time, there's no pressure, there's no limitation on you. Like, hey, you have to go there, study this much. And then you go to, you don't have to, you're not bound by anything.
How much did you make as a student?
Oh, as a student. Oh, so from the business itself. So during the summertime, I think my margins were somewhere between 28 to 32%.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's how much so pretty much after my, once I did this business, so I was approaching my 3rd semester in college.
Okay.
And then before I started that, I had enough savings that I paid all my student loan back home, which I took from Punjab National Bank, paid all that off. And got myself like a decent car, Honda Civic that I still drive. and then I'm like, okay, there's no other expenses I had. I sent leftover money to my family and then saved some for the next year because I wanted to do it for another year. And then the same strategy, this time we went even higher. So that year I had 15 students working for me.
Okay.
Yeah, some of my classmates, I hired the local ones from Windsor. And then next year we went up to, I think, 220,000. Yeah. So then I did it for 2 years. And then after that, I'm like, okay, now because I was in university, and university, you are allowed to go for your PR directly. You don't have to work for a year.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I applied for PNP, got my PNP before my work permit. And then applied for PR right away. So there was no pressure of me go find a regular job and then be eligible for the PR. So I was like, okay, I'll just do the business, won't go for a regular job. I was getting really good at it, making good money, definitely put in more hours into business. But at the same time, when you work for yourself, you don't really feel that, and you never count the hours either.
So Mohit, can everyone do it? Like there are a lot of people, there are 71 people. Wow, that's a good number of people here. So like, can anyone do it? Like what is it that stops people from doing what you did?
So I think the number one, like even my classmates. So once I did it, I was the first or second international student in this company who ever did it. Okay. So nobody ever joined in as usually the Canadians, like the PR or the citizen would do it. And those students, it was very popular program among those students.
Right.
So, and the international student would never do it. One being just because when you run a business, there's so many issues involved, be it the liabilities, and you might run into some other issue, which people would think like, hey man, if I do this, it might run into some problem with my PR.
And so what was the biggest learning that you had, Mohit, doing that, right? One is learning, how to do a business, but what was the biggest takeaway of you running that business?
So if I have to put it in one line, I would say the one thing that I've learned from running business that early when I came to Canada is your business only goes that far as you go as a person, like you're willing to go as a person itself. What I mean by that is like your business will grow, let's say let's say you want to double the size of your business in terms of revenue and whatnot, you have to double the amount of learning you have as a person, the discipline you have as a person, the amount of calls or amount of customers you can meet, everything has to double. So it starts with you. One thing before I even started the business is learned how to manage my time well. So I was using Google Calendar at that time, pretty much putting in every single detail I can, filled it up, have a like 1 week, 1 day in a week where I'm absolutely not doing anything, just focusing on myself, my mental health, be it my physical health for that part. And then everything else was put to calendar, small details, even if I have to spend an hour on Netflix, even that would go in there. Even though I might not follow that part, but at least I wanted to be that much planned area. I reduced the amount of time I was spending on social media at that time, pretty much brought it down to 0 at one point. And then the one other part that keeps you motivating in this journey is you have to have your sphere, the people whom you surround to has to be aligned with your goals as well. So at that time, all the people I would follow online or offline as well were folks who were involved in some sort of business one way or other, mostly in real estate or renovation kind of thing. So you can just bounce off your ideas with them instead of being with someone who doesn't do it, and then they just don't understand what you are going through, and it can become discouraging at that point if you not have that support system around you.
And that's a conscious choice that you make, right? So I think that's really important. You are the average of 5 people around you. I always say that. I'm not making it up. A lot of smart people have said that. Push to such hoga uske andar, right? So so I think you did really well there, Mohit. Kudos to you for doing that. Now I just do want to fast forward a little bit, right? So when did you buy your first house? And let's talk about your real estate journey, right?
So what I did right after, once I completed my second year of business, I joined Amazon. So I was never planning to do any work, but then some of my friends tried for Amazon. They didn't get through. I'm like, man, this company must be really good, And so the hiring was like, I was joining there directly as a manager. I'm like, okay, this seems like a challenge. Let me just do it. So I joined Amazon as a area manager position, and then the location that was in Mississauga started with Milton, then I moved to Mississauga location, so started there. And then at that point I just got my PR like in within few months into my actual work, and I was still continuing this renovation work, not on actively, but I was managing it now because I got so good at it. I was managing it passively. So I had 2 employees. And then what I would do is like people would call me, hey, we have this work. I'm like, okay, I'll come on the weekend, see what sort of help you need, give them a price point. If we agree on it, I'll let my team know, hey guys, this and this day, this weekend, make sure your calendar is clear. We got to go there and get their work done. So I was doing that on a side on a very small level now in my third year. But at the same time, I was working Amazon full time, and that allows me to now constantly getting approved for mortgage. First, I figured that part, how much income you need. So even before I got my PR, I had a meeting done with bank, what documents they need for my initial mortgage. Because I was into real estate anyway, deep. I already had a good knowledge of which area I wanted to buy, kind of house I wanted to buy, and I wanted to use it as a student rental. Because I was a student, so I had very insight into the market, how it works, the margins and everything. So I got my, I think, PR card, and within 1 week, we had our property lined up. We saw it, signed up the contracts and the offer, and then got my first property in 2019. I think it was 2019, end of 2019. So looking at, I think, September or October, that's the time frame. That's when I got my first property. So the moment I got my first property, it was for 293 in Windsor. It's a 6-bedroom, 3-bedroom upstairs, 3 bedrooms in the basement. And so did the math based on the rental at that time. I'm like, okay, this is a cash flow positive property. And at the same time, I decided to self-manage it because I wanted to learn inside out of the tenant part of it as well. So then we put up the ads, furnished it with all the things required a student could have in the room, like table, chairs, and then mattresses and all that. So did that part, and then started and rented that house within a month. So then even when I got my first property, the goal was there that, hey, how can I get the second one? So I knew my Amazon income would go up every year because I was getting promoted. Pretty much I had a full plan, like, hey, I'll do Amazon for 3 years. I'll get 1 promotion every year. Every promotion gives me a bump of this much salary. And then as long as my rental incomes keep up with it, I will keep on qualifying for every 6 months or so. And the same thing happened. After 6 months, we bought another property in Windsor itself. This time the property which I lived in as a student for 2 years when I was in Windsor, 2.5 years. That property in a private deal from the landlord itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay, so sorry, Mohit,
yeah.
back up here. So I think a couple of questions are asking, how did you
Mhm.
get the knowledge of doing all this, right?
Mhm.
I think one thing, and I'll just talk on that a little, and then
Yeah.
I'll take you up on that question. I think one of the biggest advantages that you had when you got your PR and got your first property was that you already had the knowledge of the area and knowledge of the industry. And I think that's an underrated skill right now,
Mhm.
because a lot of people actually want to go head first, and say that, okay, I have no knowledge, let me just buy a property. I think it should be the other way around. You did it hands on, but you don't have to be hands on. You need to be able to get your ducks in the line, how much money you need, talk to a bank, talk to a mortgage agent. All these are free tasks that you can do. You don't have to pay anything to anyone to get that knowledge. How much would you say that helped you, make a first successful investment, like knowing your shit beforehand?
I think that was the only and the major factor in making this decision, because I knew everything beforehand, how to do it, how to increase the value of the property, kind of property I wanted, how many rooms I wanted, and how do I add value to it going forward, and the location. So everything was like pinned down before, just based on the knowledge I have done it. If I wouldn't have done this kind of homework beforehand, I think I would have wouldn't I would have eventually bought properties, but not at the time like where I was able to acquire first one within 1 week of getting a PR, because I was already prepared for this move. I was just waiting for that, PR card to have in my hand and then make the move on the investment.
Nice. And going forward, how many properties do you have right now in your
So
portfolio?
I have right now all in my investment portfolio, me and my like the investor buddy that I have. So we
Yeah.
both have currently 6 properties, and we are closing in on a 3.6 million gas station. Hopefully,
Wow.
hopefully by end of this month we should be able to acquire. That's the biggest one that we have in our. That's an active business.
Okay.
I'll share the story about that, as like why we acquired it, what's the plan with it. So along with 6 properties, that's another one that we have, and our properties are in Kitchener, London, and Windsor.
And why did you choose these three areas?
So I started with Windsor because I was from that city. I knew that back of the hand, so it was easy to get into the market. So I got my first four properties that we got that were in Windsor. Then I ended up selling 2 of them, and then after that my cousin, my friend and cousin, he moved into London. So he told me, like, Mohit, like, have you had any idea about what's the rental market in London? I'm like, well, it's much better than Windsor. I'm like, okay. I started looking into the price of it. I'm like, oh, we can make it work, so let's try one in London. So I had him take the lead on that one, and I was like, okay, I'm like, you now you know the process as well. So he learned everything from me. He was my employee in College Pro as well, and then he ran that business for a year himself, got the exact same knowledge as I had. And then we always had this mentor and mentee relation as well. So I'm like, okay, you take this lead. So he took the lead on the London property. Good. So he's himself living in that property. At the same time, the property is cash flow positive for around, I think, 12 to 1300 bucks per month, on top of him living himself in that property. So that's the one in London. And then the Kitchener ones, that's one because I moved and my work required me to move here permanently. So I was living in GTA on rental, even though I at one point had like four properties that I owned myself, and then I was still living on a rental.
Sorry, I have 3 properties, 4 doors, live on rental.
Yeah.
Life would have it like that, right? So
Yeah.
that's okay. As long as you have rental property, it's okay to pay rent.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm like, and then I'm like, so my family was coming in, and I was planning to get married as well. So I'm like, okay, family's coming in, let's just make like the first primary residence. So even when I bought my first primary residence in Kitchener, because my work was in Mississauga, I'm like, okay, I can do up and down, and I was anyway going 3 days a week at work. It wasn't a everyday commute. So then we bought that. Even this property, the Kitchener one, we got with the basement separate entrance. So from day one, this one is rented out. Basement is rented out as well. So that kind of covers almost 30 to 35% of the mortgage. So that's what we have right now.
All right, that's awesome. And like I'm in Kitchener as well. Like 2 of my properties are in Kitchener.
Yeah.
Hopefully the third one soon. But what is it about Kitchener that you feel? Because I think you are also doing most of your realtor work in Kitchener.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. So what is it that you find different about Kitchener that's not there in Windsor and London or rest of GTA?
I think so. Every city, like Windsor and London cities, the 2 cities that I've so far invested in, they have one thing in common: they have university and college.
Right.
But if you look at the job market, London has a little better than the Windsor. It's not that strong. Nobody moves to Windsor for a work. Very few people move it. But compared to Kitchener and Waterloo, that's the one difference. People move here for college. There are 2 universities, top class. There's a college here, and on top of that, there's a lot of people move here. You're working professionals. That's a huge plus point in this city that was not available in London and Windsor to a certain extent. So that's a one major plus point. Plus 2 universities, 1 college. On top of that, if you compare the rental average for student market, it's a lot better compared to Windsor and London. So even if you top that, and then the price difference, if you go by the kind of investment property that I look for, that's the price difference is only you're looking at 100 between London over here, you're looking at 100k difference, and same if you go back to Windsor, so another 150 to 200k between the kind of properties that I deal with. And then on top of that, the proximity to the GTA, that's sense. A huge factor as well. People underestimate that, because people like literally, I know at least tons of my friends who stay in this area where Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, or Cambridge, and then they work it out of Mississauga. So that's a huge factor as well, because if you are priced out of that GTA market, which at one point pretty much everyone was who worked there and even still are.
I think, Mohit, the airport is underrated. I took my Calgary and Vancouver flight and I loved it because it was 15 minutes from my house.
Yes.
I could park in the parking lot for $10 a day and just fly out. And on the way back, I don't know if you have been there. On the way
I've been once. I went to, I think I flew in from Edmonton that time. Yeah.
You don't waste any time, right? You just get out of the plane, get inside, take your bag, and you're out, and you reach the exit door, right?
It's the cheapest airport parking you can find anywhere in Ontario.
$10 a day is amazing. It's $22 for Pearson, and that too very far, right? Anyways, I think for all those reasons, I also moved to Kitchener. All right, so I have a couple of questions here. It's a very interesting question. I'll just twist it a little. Mohit, what was your course in the university? Did it help you run your business operations?
Yes, the best. I think it helped me a lot because my course was supposed to be only 6 hours a week.
Okay, so it was not very intensive, and therefore you were able to run the business.
It was so. I did my undergrad in India. So if you do your undergrad in engineering in India and come here for master, it's a cakewalk.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So. Let's talk about your gas station. Tell me something about that. Like, how do you think of, okay, let's do a gas station?
So
you don't think about that, right?
Yeah, I know. So basically what we were thinking at that point, so we have the COVID happens, we had our properties, we held on to them, and then the value pretty much doubled of all of them. Right. So, and then we were like, okay, now we have this equity, what do we do with it? One is we go into multifamilies at that time. So that was the first stepping stone. I did the maths based on the numbers, how it's going to work out. It's great for the part, but I was really looking for active income, because at that time my Amazon active income was good enough, allowing me to get approved for mortgages. Same thing with my cousin as well. Then he started working his active income from the business. So that till that point, we got up to overall portfolio of 2.5 million, maybe over that. Overall, all the properties adds up to that number. So I'm like, okay, things are going really good, but we can't just grow from here now. A point where, because we don't have enough down payment for every house now we get.
Right.
And at some point, unless we start doing this refinancing, starting doing BRRRR, because I wasn't into flip, I really didn't like it. That wasn't my choice of things I wanted to do. So I'm like, okay, I need to find another thing which allows me to leave the Amazon, because they were paying me almost 165-ish. So I'm like, okay, the only way I leave this part and enter a business full time, I need a strong active income that supports me without me being there all the time, or I can manage it a little bit remotely, but for the most part. And then we started into okay, multifamilies was one part, but then the active cash flow wasn't there. Of course, long-term gain is there, but at the same time, tenants, it's hard to get the tenants out of there. So and then the property value is attached to the amount of income you have. I'm like, okay, then what other businesses we can do other than multifamilies? So then we were like, okay, so then I started looking around, and then met this commercial realtor. His name is Upinder. So I met him in Mississauga. We went over. He's like, what are you trying to do? I'm like, this is what I am. I have some down payment I can put into it. I can even bring a partner as well if required. Tell me active cash flowing business which allows me to leave my full-time job, and then at the same time I can support the same kind of lifestyle and keep making these investment year over year. So it's like the only businesses which allow you to have that kind of return, which is we are looking at 10 to 12% cap rate, is the gas station. And then you don't have to actively run them. It's pretty offense. Anyone can do it. You just have to set up a good team onto it and make sure you have a regular follow-up with them. So even the gas station, when you say gas station, it's not the gas. gas is the most like what do you call it, overrated part of it. It doesn't make you any money whatsoever. So margins on gas is you're looking at 5 to 6 cents per liter, which is nothing if you see the expenses overall with the gas station. So the main part is you make money in convenience store, but that too only 30% margin. And you really kill the deal if you have a car wash attached to it, or you have some sort of a restaurant in there, like a fast food restaurant. Yeah. So that's the whole plan of it. So we started looking for this gas station, tried one in which was right in Kitchener, didn't work out. And then we went to a little away from Kitchener. So there's a town called Tilsonburg. It has a population of I think 16 to 18,000 in there, and there was only 3 to 4 gas station in there. But it's a very like what do you call it, a wealthy town. It was those tobacco belt and all that. So it's a very, if you go to see the average house price, it's pretty expensive.
I saw that.
So so there was this, so we found this place, 3.6 million. It's a gas station. It didn't have a car wash, but at the same time, gas station with a nice build up convenience store along with the restaurant. It's a burrito place, but it looks like a franchise. It's not a franchise.
Oh, okay. And
then it was it was run by absentee owner. So owner wasn't present there. He would only go there once a month or so. And then I'm like, okay, then we looked into the numbers of it, kind of makes sense. We were in that 12 to 13% cap rate. At the same time, the amount of opportunity. So we pretty much spend like, I think 5 or 6 weekends there. We would park our car in a nearby plaza to, see what sort of traffic they get in, what are the improvements we can make in the customer service itself. We would, just ate tons of burritos. How we can add into that part without sacrificing the margins, how we can improve that part. So really spend like a good month and a half there, going there every weekend, and then figuring out, learning that business part even from outside view, because I wanted to really understand it from a customer side of it. I brought in a partner as well with me, my cousin. I'm like, okay, dude, this is what we're gonna do. We planned it out, the marketing campaign, we want to run through it. Everything was done down on the paper to the T. And then I'm like, okay, let's make a move on this. So we ended up selling our one property. We did the HELOC, refinance, whatever we can do with the existing properties. Sold one property because numbers weren't working out. I'm like, okay, we have to get rid of one. So that gave us a good chunk in there. So we pretty much putting up almost 1.2 million as down payment in the gas station, because you have to put 35% for this.
35%,
yeah. So right now we are in final stages of we got the mortgage part done. So now we are in final stages of going through some license transfers and all that. So hopefully by in 2 to 3 weeks we should have the keys to the place, and then improve that, and then get that cash flow going in from there. And that cash flow now supports our real estate acquisition from there. On top of that, it allows me not worrying about me leaving my job, and then I can grow my real estate business, keep acquiring more and more real estate adding to the real estate portfolio, and now can easily get into that multifamily zone where I don't have to worry about that high cash flow.
That's amazing, Mohit. That the kind of things that go on in your head. It's fascinating. I wish I could dissect everything, but we don't have the time for that. But that's kudos to you, man. Just identifying businesses with high cap rates in itself is, and I did look at gas stations as a potential, but obviously the cash injection in it,
it's
right. So
entry point is very high.
Yeah, the entry point is very high. So that's true. How do you keep yourself motivated? Do you have mentors? Do you read books? Any recommendations on that front?
So again, as I'm going to go back to the same point, I'm actually surrounded by people who make way more than I do.
Yeah.
And they like I know. So I just started in real estate like almost 2 months back. I already did my first 5 deals, working on few more leads, and pretty much next weekend I booked with showings even in this market. And when I entered, people said, "Man, Mohit, you're entering at the wrong time." But I specifically chose to work with people who are very high performers at that time and still are, and then they are still like pulling in deals. And the moment like anyone does a deal, they messages, and I'm like, man, this guy did it. I'm gonna do it as well now. So again, like the motivation comes from my sphere. Like, yeah, I do have professional coaches as well who help me out with now. I do take coaching from them because you want to be aligned on, but they mostly focus on my personal development, my health part of it. Business, they do give me some nuggets here and there, but mostly it comes from my immediate sphere, people I surround with, people I talk to every day. That's what keeps me going.
All right, that's awesome. This is one question that I get a lot as well. Like, how do you manage your time? I think you did talk about that a little, but how do you manage it? How do you find time to do everything, like Amazon and flipping properties and gas station and real estate? And
So I think, yeah, my wife doesn't like that part, but she appreciates the amount of work I do. So when I was just doing so as I said, like I learned the time management piece when I first ran the business. So that really helped. So I really over leverage or leverage my Google Calendar. You can never over leverage it, by leverage it, putting everything in a fixed point. And few things I have cut out of my life the moment I started on this entrepreneurship journey, and I had some early success in my life. I don't go out. Means I go out for partying or anything. Even for like anyone calls me for any sort of party. Now people don't call me because they know I don't come. I straight up tell them no. Like, hey guys, like it's just not something I'm into, and I stay away from it unless it's like a family function, very close one. I would go there, but other than that, I'm pretty much working. Can you work 7 days? No, I do try to take at least a day off. I usually do it on when there is a big sports events happening. So I would rather, go watch them on TV, not go there, but watch them on TV. So that's kind of my fairway. I do like try to, go out to play basketball or something with some of the very close, people whom I have around me. And now I just put a little basketball ring outside my house as well. So I keep it every time I get time. But yeah, so the time management piece learned early on. Use the Google Calendar, start using it. Like it's pretty basic. You just pretty much try to put everything you want to do in a day to it, and then stick to those timelines. Put very strict timelines on it. You only have that 1 hour window to get that stuff done. Otherwise there's something else coming in after that. So it's just, being because I learned it I didn't have any choice other than being good at it when I ran the business. Otherwise I would have failed as a student. And as a student, if you do put so much effort and lose money into it, there's nothing worse than that. So I put myself in a corner where I just had to get really good at time management, because otherwise I would have failed my classes. That would have derailed my entire career as an international student. So it was just very critical piece for me to hey, I learned to manage this time, otherwise I'm gonna be a colossal failure.
That actually gets me to a very interesting point. If you have to learn time management, give yourself so much work, produce so much work for yourself that you have no other choice but to manage your time. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I always say that I'm too busy to do this, and I end up doing that and finding time for it. I'm like project after project after project. Me and my wife Simran has we always have the discussion that I think I'm too busy for this. And then I am able to find 1 month later I realize what, I can actually cut down time here and I can do this here, right? So I think that's you just produce so much work for yourself, whether it's learning or it's work, that you have to manage time, and then you will be good at it. And Google Calendar is really amazing. I totally agree. I have my gym time. I have everything there, like lunch, dinner, like even if I have to go on a date with Simran. Yeah, right. And she's okay with it, right? Yeah. In the beginning, she was like, "You're putting me on a calendar." Should a student try to buy their first property? I know that there's foreign buyer tax, involved, but yeah, should a student buy their first property if they have a lot of money?
Yeah, if you have that money, why not? Like sooner you get started, the better it is. But at the same time, when you buy a property as a student, you have a huge commitment to yourself. You can mess up things after that point, because you gotta be, it's a huge responsibility, and then there's a lot of liabilities that comes with as well. So you gotta be prepared for that. Make sure you do your diligence, meet someone who has done this before. That's one thing I always do before I try to do something new. I meet someone who has already done it at a high level.
Yeah.
And then pick up their brain, like see how they did it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just if there is already a system in there, implement it. Always you want to make it up to your style, how you want to do it. But at the same time, the basic fundamentals you should take from someone who has already done it, and that too successfully.
So if and this is abundance thinking, right? I'm now talking about abundance thinking versus scarcity thinking, where people think that, oh, if I give out this secret, I will lose something, right?
No. I have nothing to keep. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and this is for me as well, right? When I came to Canada, I saw people buying properties. I saw people earning, so much. I went through houses and I said, oh, wow, this is a wonderful beach house. This must be $10. I wonder what this guy does, right? And I always felt that this guy must be doing something wrong, like something illegal, right? Maybe they are, right? But now I know that, not everyone is making money illegally. And if you knock on their door and ask what you do, they'll probably spill out secrets. The problem is we don't ask, right? And that's where I think a lot of us miss out on, including me, right? So how can you learn more about real estate investments? Did you have any mentors who you shadowed? How can you learn more about real estate investment again?
So I didn't have, as I said, like I already met in my student like people who are doing flip and whatnot. So I obviously had those. The realtor I was working with, I used to keep bugging them. I'm like, hey, dude, like, how does people buy from, one after the other? What is the way to do it? And then find like, the best way is like see someone who's doing it at a high level, reach out to them and then message them. Nowadays it's so easy to connect with people. When I started, there's not a lot of people who were doing this kind of work on social media actively at that time. And then so I really have to like find someone in my close circle and ask them how they are doing it. And I really hopped on to some great people, some great entrepreneur or investor when I was doing that college pro business. So we would go in their house, do some work, and obviously get to talk to the customer, and then they tell us like, hey, this is what I do, why don't you come to my other property? Other property, how do you have two properties? Then they'll share their strategies with me, and that's how we made up. I'm like, oh, this is doable. If this guy can do it, I can definitely do better than him, or at least match him in this. And then that's how you get started.
And that actually brings me to a very important point here. That you don't have to know everything before you start. You just need to start. Yes, know a person who has done it, learn from them, and then you need to start, and then you learn on the way as you make mistakes. And it's okay if you lose a few $100s, right? So it's just a mistake that you would not repeat. Make sure of that. So I think you don't need to have all answers, Mohit. That's what I got from your answer upfront, right? So the question is, at what point you decided to quit your job and enter into real estate? What was that point?
So my initial goal was that, hey, I'll continue doing Amazon and then just do real estate for my own properties with a few of my close friends. So the moment I got my license, I was used to talk to my people at work about real estate at all the times as well. So the moment I got license, I started telling them. People were just like, yeah, get me. I'm like, oh, I have a really good circle of people who wanna come and do this. And then I'm like, okay, let me just stick because I've just been in there in 2 months or so. So initially I'm like, okay, I'll just stick around for a little while and feel it out. But then I just started getting these calls, and once I put up, I think I'll just give you an example from like last week. I did a podcast with Aditya. From that alone, I think my messages and everything have been so loaded up. I haven't even been able to contact to each one of them. And then I saw that I'm like, okay, this is now I found a niche that I really wanted to like. Now I just need to get better at sharing my story on those platforms. And once a constant lead come flow, and then I saw how you started. I remember you had a conversation with Raman about the same thing. With same Max. About one of your videos. So I always use like, if you won't leave a job, it makes you like almost 160 170k, you'll never be able to make 300k. So you gotta sacrifice that part. The good thing with me is it allows me to, I could leave my job without pay for an extended period of time. And then plus my managers, because I was very upfront everyone at my work. I never hid the fact that I do real estate, I'm an investor, I'm buying a station and whatnot. So people were very they were pushing me like, do this, dude, you are the first one to get out of this the circle. So just my manager was super supportive of me, from anyone from the entry level to the topmost guys in Amazon. Everyone was super supportive of me. And the moment I decided to take this plunge, they were all helping me out. Now there's majority of them are my clients or will be my clients in future, because they keep asking me these. Anytime I find a really good deal, I share it my Amazon folks. I'm like, hey guys, you guys are the first piece of the pie if anyone wants to jump in, and a lot of them does want to jump in. So now I think that's leveraging that your sphere in the close part. But at the same time, I ran through the numbers. I'm like, okay, now I have a strategy to have a consistent lead flow. The day you figure out that lead flow part, constantly generating that via social media, or if you have a very good circle of people around you, that helps you with that. As long as once I figured out the lead part and I started getting them consistently, I'm like, okay, this is the right time, and just go full time into this.
Yeah, makes sense. I just answered that, and that's amazing, Mohit. I think the one thing that I would just add on to that is keeping your expenses low.
Yes, correct.
Right. So I think the biggest thing that we did when I left my job, obviously Simran was earning, my wife was earning, but we still had a mortgage to pay. We still had a couple of payments left on our pre-construction, and the biggest thing was that we kept our expenses low. In fact, we reduced it by 25%. We just looked at our budget. We saw opportunities to reduce it, and we just reduced it by 25%. till the time I get, some leads. I also had my YouTube and other things going.
Yeah.
So I always, try to build 50% of whatever I was earning in my Walmart job, almost 50%. And I was like, okay, I'm making 50% if I don't work with Walmart. I was working with Walmart in the head office as a market researcher. And I was like, okay, I have my expenses down. I'm making 50% of what I was making. Now's the time to leave. I think a lot of times people underestimate the power of doing side hustles with your job, building it to a level where you feel comfortable that yes, you want to do it full time, and you're putting in $1, you're getting it $2, or whatever that is. You're putting in $1, you're getting $1 1 cent, right? So if you understand that model, and if you are interested, only then jump into it, fully. So that was my strategy. I think Mohit, you were similar.
Yeah, I think, just one more point I wanted to add. I think that the main pointer of it, other than the real estate business, because at this point, before I decided to jump into this part, I already had the gas station deal done. We were just waiting for the closing on that, and then also, so that covers my regular cash flow for me.
Right.
And then if I put half the time that I put anywhere else, I can increase that income by manyfold. On top of that, I didn't have any mortgage that I had used to pay from my active income, because all my mortgages were, things were planned in a way, the cash flow and everything, they collide together, and then just everything pays for each other. So I didn't, that's a major expense. If you can figure out a way to, did that, because I was doing that from last 4 years, intentionally trying to be in a situation like this, where I will call it quit at one day. And then I think that planning did come in handy, where like now I'm like, oh, my job really doesn't pay for my mortgage. So even if I don't have it for a few months, it doesn't affect me in any way.
I think you need to put in the work upfront, and you can't just build this by working 8 hours, 9 hours a day. This can't, right? So it's just simple, right? You can't. Upfront, you need to put in time, and you need to trade your time, and you just need to do it in a direction that you like. So what core quality we have to look at if we want to find a partner for business?
Yes, I think that's
or business, right?
Yeah. So I think the one because because I worked in people business for so long, and then kind of like, especially when I started with the student part of it, so you really get to feel of people. Like if I just be with them for a while, I really get a kind of what sort of mindset this guy has about the business. And the people I brought it into my businesses, they have a very similar way of thinking as I have. They grew up from the same system as I have, which was the college pro. So that gives you a huge headwind. And on top of that, now you get into even if you bring in new external partner, because sometimes you just have to raise too much money, and then you have to bring those partners, you have to have a clear understanding with them. Hey, this is your role. Like your role is to be a silent partner, get those things on paper, and then make sure that person is very clear about that part. As long as you I keep if I do bring the partner, anyone who's not actively involved, I make sure they understand their role very well, that hey, you are not actively involved in it, you are here for the money. If you want an exit, we can plan exit for 5 years by all means, and if you want a sooner exit, then that's probably not the investment for you, depending on one. So if you do flips, that's a different story. You get those partners who can quickly in there. A few other things that I leverage at that point, I did when my incomes and everything was at a very high rate, I got a good lines of credit at that time. I'm like, okay, these are emergency. I would never use them. I've never used them so far. I have almost 250,000 worth of line of credits from different banks. Never touched them. They're still there. The bank keeps on messaging me, hey, we increased it even more. I'm like, I never used it. But so, and then so have a clear understanding if someone comes from the same system as you have, and be very clear. Money conversation makes a lot of us consider people don't want to have them, and I used to run away from them as well. So now upfront having a Google, we keep a Google sheet, anything, something happened, we put them in, both of us gets a notification, hey, this is where the money came in, this is where money is going. Having those upfront conversation at this time, and at the same time you have to be clear, it's a business at the end of the day. Sometimes you lose money, but if you run it successfully and you have done it for a while, you can make those good heaps and look. But as you gotta have someone who has the same kind of mindset as you have, and if that person doesn't have it, make sure there's an exit strategy for them. So that way, whenever they want to move out, you give them a full plan. Hey, this is what it takes you to go out. If you want to go out, by all means.
All right, no, that's good advice. Thank you for that. Let's talk about a few. Do you have different property managers managing all properties, or just one?
So what the formula that I use, so far that has been successful. So I've been self-managing my property so far. What I do is the person depends on the people who live in my house. I find the one who's the sincere most. I give him a discount of few hundred, like $100 or so on my property, and I tell them, dude, you gotta collect rent from everyone. You're gonna send me at once, and then you're gonna be doing a little grass work that required. I have already given him a lawnmower, and then for snow part as well, make sure you assign everyone role. If they don't, if you need some money of few hundred bucks here and there, as long as you take care of everything for me, great. So I have that deal with him, and I do try to do the same thing on my other properties as well. And then I learned it after making few mistakes, because I'm like, I've been spending too much time going back and forth. Every time there's a small issue, I'm like, let me drive to Windsor. And I'm like, this is not a good use of my time.
That's good advice. Have your tenants, like one of your tenants do that for you, right? So, and they would not, they would like the discount. And
yeah, definitely. Everyone loves the discount. If my landlord would have offered me that, I would have taken it on the jump.
$100, $200, whatever that is, right? So,
yeah, and on top of that, I teach him everything about real estate. So a lot of people who are in my close circle, they want to learn things that I do. And then these guys, I'm like, okay, but I'll show you how to, how do I increase value of this property? How does the business mortgage part works? I'll help you out with those things as well whenever you are ready. But the condition is you got to learn to manage this property.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Any issues with toxic tenants? Do you have horror stories?
Just one. The very first time when we rented out the place. Okay. Oh man, it was I think it was the biggest lesson learned. So very first time we were just getting calls from these students. I'm like, okay, great. You come in. Everyone comes in. so we received a call from this lady, and she's like, hey, we're looking for a room for my daughter. So first red flag that I ignored at that time. I'm like, why can't her daughter call herself? Yeah. So then she's like, my daughter comes in, she goes to school there, and then, she'll be living in your place. I'm like, that's fine. And they're like, yeah, and then we'll pay you upfront as well. And then within 10 minutes, we have first and last month rent, which never happens. I'm like, wow, this is so good. So, and then, so cut in the time when everyone moved into the house, daughter moved in, along with daughter, mother moved in as well. Okay. And then I get to know from other tenants, this lady lives in there. I'm like, I thought you it's just your daughter. And it's like, yeah, my daughter is in there, but she's just going through some stuff. I'm trying to help her out. I'm like, okay, it's fine. For a short term, if she lives in there, she's like, I'll pay you extra for myself. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We can live there. Then after a while, we start having some issues with the tenant. She's just like, she would she'd plug out all the appliances from the house, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off the microwave. It's just weird stuff started happening. And then most of the tenants in our house at that time were female students, and they would get scared about it. And then I'm like, she told me if once this happened, I'm like, yeah, just plug it in. Then it happened like 3-4 times within 1 week. And I'm like, wow, this is really bad. What's going on here? I called her mother, and she would always ignore me. She's like, nothing. She just thought like, why use electricity, save electricity. I'm like, who the hell saves electricity like this? So eventually I called her mom, and I'm like, okay, here's the thing, like, guys, I'm coming in there for the weekend. I need both of you guys there. We got to sort this out. I can't continue this. Otherwise other tenants will leave, or she has to leave, but this can't continue. They will call someone like cops for her if she keeps on doing stuff like this. She's just putting everyone else in jeopardy as well. So met the parents, and then they told me the real story is like, their daughter is not well. She doesn't want to live with them, and they used to live nearby as well. So she doesn't want to live with them. So they moved her out of the house, but wanted to keep her near them. So in case she needs any help, they can run back to her. But she has never lived with other people. I'm like, if your daughter is not well, why would you put her in with 5 strangers? Isn't that going to make it worse for her? And then the same night I was there. So during the day we met her parents. So we decided like how she's going to move out and whatnot. They're like, okay, we understand this is not a good. And that night she started yelling at everyone in the house. Everything she get her hands on, started throwing around. Oh my God, it was the scariest one. My tenants. So of course, when you happen, someone called cops nearby. My tenants called me, hey Mohit, are you still in the town? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming in. I met the cops. And then the girl just ran out of the house on the street, yelling at everyone whom she met on the floor. And then our parents came in like in 10 minutes. The cops were there. I met the cops. Cops like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. Her parents are coming. Talk to them, man. We have no idea what's going on. So they thought there's some like parent and kids and parents issue. So then like she ran off. After that, never came back. Next day, her parents took off her stuff. I returned them the entire rental payment. I'm like, just take it.
I'm so glad that you're not.
I'm just so happy they left after 2 weeks. But after that, I do my due diligence with everyone I met. I talk to that person, meet them at least once, if not in person, try to meet them in there, see what sort of goals they have, how many long they want to live in. Good thing about student rental is there's a high turnover. They leave after 2 semesters, 3 semesters, mostly a year or so. So you always stay at the competitive prices in the market. So that kind of helps you with cash flow as well. But at the same time, like, like that was the only first, and I hope the last one that I had, but I learned my lesson after that. I built in those systems, made sure that we never had a repeat of this.
Yeah, I think I was interviewing Aditya and we were doing some student rentals, and for everyone who is here, that's one strategy that he told me, and now I know that a lot of people actually do it. For student rentals, always have a maid service inside the contract, and every 2 weeks it's good for students because the house gets deep cleaned. Plus, it's good for the landlord as well. In that case, Aditya and his clients, that they would be on top of their properties and they would know what's going on. And it's almost like having a jazus, inside the house every 2 weeks or every month or so. And if there's something wrong, the landlord will know, right? So if you are thinking of student rentals, I think that's a good strategy. First of all, the house remains clean and there's no waterlogging, whatever, right? So it just has to be clean. But yeah, that's a good way of managing the property as well. Mohit, one last question I am not sure if we have more questions. No, we don't. But yeah, I have one more question. Like, what's next for you? Like, you bought the gas station, you left your job, you have your realtor license. What are you focusing on right now, both in terms of your personal investing strategy and also in terms of your business that you're building, realtor or whatever you're doing? So if you can just talk about that.
Yes. So the goal is to develop my realtor business. For that's where my goal is. That's why I joined EXP, because EXP is not for someone who doesn't want to be a high performer, because based on how the business structure with the EXP is, if you are a high performer, if you are someone who can knock down those deals, 20 plus 30 deals in a year, it's a win-win organization for you, and you get to build your own team as well. So that's why I joined EXP with that target, and it gives you a lot of exposure to people in US who does it at a high level. So once you see people who you surround yourself with those people, you're going to end up somewhere as good as well. So develop the real estate business with the gas station, work on increase the overall cash flow in the gas station, increase the margin. It's again like customer facing business. I'm trying to do how do I have a window drive through kind of thing, working on that part, so not have to invest a lot into making a full drive through, but at the same time just have a window where someone can just walk to the window instead of going into the convenience store. So adding that part into it, and then something that Chick-fil-A does very well that I learned from Chick-fil-A business model, have one person, so if someone is filling up gas, let's say, or outside on a part, why don't you walk up to them with a little menu, hey, do you want to order something? By the time you fill up your gas, I'll quickly go and get it for you. Or you can just, while you're leaving, just grab it from the window itself. So they give you order while they're pumping in gas. So that's one part of so that's the few things we want to add into our gas station model. So gas station, and then the real estate business from then, and then from the real estate investment point of view, I really want to get into those now multi-families, because now I have solved my problem of active cash flow. So now the next part is like, how do I get into those big buildings with the JP partners who have a lot of more experience than me, and then learning that aspect of how to deal with those long-term tenants.